If you ever wondered what Gears of War would be like as a looter shooter, Outriders is the game for you. What's up guys, Veteran Gamer here, and today's review is Outriders on PlayStation 5. This is a game that if it looks and feels like Gears of War, it's because it's made from the same guys that did Gears of War Judgment. And that's not a bad thing because they transitioned into a co-op looter shooter very well, and this game is a blast to play. When I ask the question that whether or not it hits or misses, it hits 2 out of 3 times. It's a flawed game, and we'll get to those flaws in a moment. But at its core, it's a looter shooter made in the same way that Borderlands is. And what I mean by that is, while games like Destiny is a shared world shooter designed to play socially, Outriders is more like Borderlands, where it's made to be played solo, but with friends that can jump in and out as you see fit. The story, the campaign itself, is a good campaign. The concept of it is a very straightforward, very linear, but the characters and the way the story unfolds will leave you surprised. On top of that, the cutscenes are done well. The acting and the story and how it plays out is also done really well. This is a game that I played it solo, and I had a blast playing it. And I still continue to play it after finishing the campaign. Being a looter shooter, it wouldn't be a looter shooter without a skill tree. And the skill tree you see on the screen is for the Technomancer. This is what I love about what they did here is you can respec at any time. And it's good because you cannot fill out your tree. It is not possible to fill out your skill tree. And I probably, throughout my playthrough, have respect about 2 or 3 times. Because as you progress through the game, you will eventually level up your world tier. And as the world tier goes up, the challenges and skills that go with it become harder and harder. But the trade-off is the loot gets better and better. Obviously, if you want, you could play the entire game on world tier 1, and the game will be a cakewalk for you. Just don't expect any fancy schmancy gear to drop your way because you're playing it on the easiest difficulty. With that being said, throughout my playthrough, as I progressed through the world tiers, it became abundantly clear that you are going to need 2 loadouts at least. And I say that because when you fight human enemies or enemies with guns, they tend to sit back and behind cover, much like a traditional cover shooter or like Gears of War. But when you face like creatures that are melee based, as you're seeing on screen, you need a separate loadout. You need to build your character separately because you may not have a setup for it. Like I use the Technomancer, and a Technomancer likes to be at range. And when I play creatures, no, I had to carry a shotgun. I had to make sure I had some AoE effect. Whereas when I'm playing against humans, I can sit back, bust open a sniper rifle, and take it long range shots. So like I said, throughout my playthrough, I actually, not only did I carry 2 loadouts and change my skill sets accordingly based on who I was fighting, but I also did this with the mindset of you need to respec your tree. I respected my skill tree about 2 or 3 times based on how many class points I had and what I could unlock. On top of this, what I loved about Outriders was also the environments. The environments in the game are very diverse throughout your playthrough. You will go through different areas, see different scenery. This is a beautiful looking game. The only issue I had when it came to the visual aspect or the way it was and how linear it is the fact that unlike games like Destiny and like Borderlands where you can pilot a vehicle, there is no piloting vehicles here. All you do is you walk into a room, you shoot a bunch of baddies, collect the item or open a door, rinse and repeat. The good news is that when you eventually do reach a boss battle, the boss battles are absolutely fantastic. They're multi-layered. There are different strategies, and you may even have to change your loadout depending on what boss you're fighting and how you're spec'd out. So there's a lot of good things about it, but just know that this game is very linear, and you just go into an area, rinse and repeat. Speaking of areas, the issues I had with the area is that when you traverse from one area to another in the same location that you're in, you see like a little cutscene, whether it be opening a door, mounting a wall, whatever the case may be, and then your load screen. This is what I'm talking about. As you see on screen, she opens the door, load screen, continue on. This is prevalent throughout the entire game, and it does get a little annoying. I don't know why they didn't just do a load screen. It just would have been easier. But aside from that, this game, as good as it is, there are problems. There are bugs. One of the bugs I encountered, and you're seeing it on screen, is I got stuck because the door that I was supposed to go through didn't open. I had to go back to the main lobby, load back in, and voila, that door that mysteriously wouldn't open for me is open. So that was one of the little nuances, a little annoyances that came about. And that's just one of the many little bugs that plague this game and kind of hinder the experience. On top of that, one of the other bugs that I encountered throughout my playthrough, and this one, it took me a while to catch it, but I did catch it. My brother told me about it in his experience, and you're seeing it on screen right now, is you would change a piece of gear, and yes, your stats are supposed to change, but when you change that gear back to the original, it should go back to the original stats, not new stats. And it was very weird, and I looked at it, and it makes it hard when you're trying to do a build that you're adjusting your stats, and that's what's happening. But these little bugs and little annoyances, they don't hinder the experience too much. There were two major issues with this game that hindered my experience. The first one being the servers. These servers, considering that you had a month-long demo to test them, it was annoying. I'm solo playing, and I got kicked from the game multiple times, and I couldn't get back into the game. That's annoying for a looter shooter that's co-op based, right? And it's even worse if you were trying to play multiplayer. So this happened throughout my playthrough. The good news is that the developers were quick to fix it, as through the second half of my playthrough, I didn't have issues with the servers anymore once they addressed it. But it's still worth noting that, hey, it shouldn't be happening when you have a month-long demo. The second issue, this is the game-breaking one, at least for me, is although I played the campaign solo, part of that was not by choice. Part of it was because not only did developers have to turn off crossplay because it was causing them issues, but there was an inventory wipe bug where if you play this game online with friends, there was a chance that your inventory could get wiped completely. Now, the developers did say that they are working on a fix. It's their top priority. And they did say that they will be reinstating the gear that you have lost. The only problem is that your specs, or stats should I say, may not be what you had. So if you did have that perfect roll on a piece of gear that you like, you're going to have to do it again, regardless if they give it back to you. So to me, that was a big issue with it, is that how can you not be able to play multiplayer without risking losing your gear? Now, from the people that I spoke to that did take that chance, this game's phenomenal when you play with friends. But they took a chance, and they were fortunate enough to not lose their gear, but other players did lose their gear. So out of fear of not losing my legendaries, I decided to hold off. But it's definitely like in that game breaker category. Aside from that, when I did play the game, when I was able to connect to the servers, this game was fantastic. I'm having a blast playing it. I'm still playing it. And it's definitely worth picking up. To me, Outriders is the second best looter shooter game I've played at launch next to Borderlands 3. It feels complete. It has a good story. The campaign is fulfilling. There's a good end game component to it. And you can play with friends at a moment's notice. It's a lot of fun once they get those issues ironed out. I do want to throw a bone to the developers, though, that despite this game's issues, whoever's in charge of their community side aspect, their Twitter feed and their Reddit, they are on point, communicating and transparent with the community, telling them of the issues, possible fixes, and what they're currently working on. And that's a big bonus for me. At the end of the day, I recommend Outriders to players. If you're worried about the current issues, wait a bit before jumping on, or just play solo. But this is a very fun game to be played. I'm giving Outriders a 7 out of 10.